All right, well, let's see what we got in terms of questions.
Hey, I've got something to bring up. I know this is your show.
Oh, yeah.
But this is something I want to get listener input on. This was a very interesting question, and I don't know how to answer it today. But it's from Pee-wee. He lives over in Pee-wee Valley. I've told you about that place. Hey, Jim and Brian, he even included you. I want to start out by saying I love both shows and all that y'all do, but I want to ask you a what-if question. If Paul Heyman had approached you, Jim, to do an ECW versus SMW angle, would you have done it? And if so, what are some of the matches you would have booked? Maybe this has already been asked and I missed it. I was just curious. Actually, that's never been asked. And I don't know how to answer it now, simply because if we're going to do completely fantasy situations with any degree of credibility, I don't know what his roster was between 1992 and 1995. So if anybody out there is interested in a potential combined ECW versus Smoky Mountain Wrestling fantasy card or whatever, somebody send me his list of talent, not the list of talent from 96, 97, 98, and 99, but the list of talent from 92 versus 95, so that we see who coexisted in each company and both companies and what we could do. And see, there'd be duplication. Dorian Terry Funk worked both places. Of a number of names at that period of time. Taz worked for me. Nobody remembers it. But I don't know if he started. When did Taz start in ECW?
He started with you first because you said 92. Truly,
well, yeah, he
wasn't there until the end of 93 as a booker, at least.
ECW, let's go 93 through 95 then. Because Taz worked a couple of shows for me in 93, but he was the Tasmaniac. He wasn't even Taz. So right. We can't, and I don't know if he started with Paul E. before I was finished. That's why I'm saying somebody.
No, I don't think he did.
If you have the information, give us the feedback, and let's see who was in each promotion at the same time and see what we can come up with. And actually, to answer the main part of the question, because now we're just talking about doing fantasy cards, but no, I wouldn't. He wouldn't have asked, and I wouldn't have done it. For a simple reason is we'd have been fucking idiots, either one of us, to offer that or to try that, because nobody knew who the ECW guys were in Knoxville. Nobody knew who most of the Smoky Mountain guys. I mean, everybody knew the Rock and Roll Express. A lot of people forget at the time I had more of the national names than he did. More of my guys had been on national television with WCW or WWF, but nobody knew what was going on in Philly with Smoky Mountain Wrestling except for the real smart hardcore fans, many of whom made trips down to see Smoky Mountain Wrestling in person at Fan Week. But it would have been, the trans alone would have been ridiculous unless we're going to have my guys driving to Philly and his guys driving down to fucking Knoxville. That just because it seems like it would be not necessarily a dream match, but something, a promotional rivalry. At the time, it wouldn't have made business sense for either one of us or anybody on our roster. As I said, the people in Philadelphia didn't know what the fuck was going on with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and it wasn't the style that they were watching. And in Knoxville, you went to Knoxville, a couple of shows at the Coliseum. How many people in that building, besides the ones that came with you from Fan Week, even knew that ECW existed, you think, at that point?
Oh, not many, if anyone. I think the people there, they only knew Smoky Mountain, WCW, WWF, and probably that's it.
And they knew that Continental had left them a few years before.
That was several years earlier, yeah.
So it would have been, if we'd have said on Smoky Mountain Television, ECW is coming, everybody, all our fans would have, who? What? And as I said, it would have been stupid business for either one of us to do that. And it's not even a knock on the talent. It's just nobody.
It's not even, I don't know. It's not even getting to the point that you wouldn't have been able to do it because you wouldn't have been able to work with Paul. At that point in Paul's life, Paul was into being tricky and shady.
Oh, yeah.
And working his hours, and you couldn't get a straight answer. So if you're trying to work with him and do a interpromotional feud, it's hard when you can't deal with the guy. I'm not saying he would have been hard to deal with. He just would have been Paul.
He would have been hard to deal with because it would have been just an aggravation to try to deal with him. And like I booked my shows 4 weeks in advance. He didn't know his lineup until he got to the building. it would have been a complete, there's no way we would have gotten video from him in a timely fashion to do our television. And meanwhile, I mean, honestly and truthfully, I remember the reaction of my locker room. Chad Austin, kid used to work ECW, and he came down.
I know Chad.
I'm pretty sure it was him that was down in Tennessee and showed the pictures to us of the deal where Sandman and Dreamer did the caning thing. And they took the pictures of Dreamer's back, and it looked like hamburger meat. And, you know, we in the business knew ECW was running in Philly and some of the stuff they were doing. It just, you know, I don't mean that. It just that our fans didn't know or care because they weren't on TV in our area. But I remember Dirty White Boy and all the guys in the locker room laughing, blowing snot, like, what the fuck's the matter with these guys? They're really beating the shit out of each other. None of the guys that I had in Smoky Mountain Wrestling would have wanted to work with almost any of those guys at that time because of what they were doing and the fact that they thought that most of those guys were fucking marks for doing it. And come to find out they were right. They all ended up on fucking pain pills, and Paul owed them hundreds of thousands of dollars. But so there would have been a style clash. There would have been grumbling on everybody's part, probably. The ECW guys wouldn't have wanted to sell for my guys unless they really bashed them over the head with chairs. And my guys would have come to me screaming that they didn't want to really hit people with shit because why the fuck would you do that? It would have been a chaos.
Did you know Todd Gordon at all? Because I know he was involved with Joel Goodhart before he started ECW.
I had heard his name. I don't know, to be quite honest, that we've ever been in the same building to this day.
Oh, no, you have. I was there, so I know.
Okay. Yeah. Were we talking to each other and I just don't remember it, or we were just in the same place?
When Dennis did the NWA 50th anniversary show, there was a wrestling card, and at that time, Dennis was doing a feud between him and Todd Gordon and the ECW originals who were no longer working for ECW, like the Pitbulls and Public Enemy, different people. And Todd was at the convention that day. And then that night...
Oh, that's right. That's right. He was at the convention, and that's when Dennis wanted me to help him with his finishes and his show lineup, right?
That's exactly right, yeah. And then Todd left.
Well, because here's the thing. Dennis said to me, we're going to have this wasn't it some kind of 10-person cage match, and Missy Hyatt was involved in it?
Well, Missy ended up replacing Todd as the leader of the ECW team because, you know, she was trying to seduce Doug in the ring, the joint. It was, you know, they had to come up with something at the last minute because Todd walked out.
Well, yeah, but basically, Dennis had said, yeah, this thing's going to suck. And I said, well, why? And he said, the match is going to suck. Plus, I've got to pay Todd Gordon X amount of dollars. Plus, I said I'd do this and I have to do that and blah, blah, blah. And he just ran this whole thing down. I said, Dennis, why are you doing this? He said, well, I thought it'd be a good idea. I said, but it's apparently not. Don't do it. And then Todd Gordon wasn't he insisting that his team had to go over so they could bring it back to something else at another show?
That sounds right. This was the last show. This was the end of it right here.
I said, Dennis, you're sitting here telling me that you're paying this guy too much money. You don't want to do what he wants to do. Nobody's particularly fucking interested to begin with, and you say it's going to suck. It's your show. Don't do it. So he didn't. He told Todd Gordon, I'm not doing all this shit. And Todd turned around and walked out. And nobody gave a fuck. And nobody asked for any refunds. But yeah, so I guess I was in that one. Maybe that's why I haven't talked to Todd Gordon at any more length.